Hey everyone, and welcome to the show today. Today we have a very special guest joining us, Omar Khan of Boardwalk Wealth, and also trusted Pantheon partner. Omar is a CFA charter holder. He has 10 years of investing across real estate and commodities. He's advised on 3.7 billion of capital financing and M&A transactions. He has syndicated large multi-million-dollar deals across the US. He's advised high net worth advisors and entrepreneurs on real estate portfolio allocations. And Omar is also a global citizen, having lived in Dubai, Toronto, Calgary, and Dallas.
And now Ada, Oklahoma, just to let you all know.
In Oklahoma, you got it. Omar, welcome to the show. So good to have you, my friend.
Thank you, David. Thank you so much for the invite. I know it's been a little while coming, but I'm very appreciative to be here.
No, absolutely. So great to, have you here and really to talk about, your journey. We want to hear about Boardwalk and what you're doing. And I think we can kind of jump into that. But, really want to hear your personal journey of, what got you into private equity, the field of real estate. And, and I know you have quite an extensive background in, in the financial industry and everything. So if you could help us tell the guests a little bit about your story and your journey and what led you, that'd be a great start.
Sure. Look, so my family's entrepreneurial. So that always helps, I guess, a little bit, right? So I always had that gene. But when I was graduating from college, I just kind of followed the herd in the sense that, most of the folks that I knew went into portfolio management, investment banking, equity research, big four type jobs, those sorts of quote unquote respectable white collar jobs that accounting and finance guys do, right? Or girls do. So, I still remember my girlfriend at the time, ex-girlfriend now, she basically said that I can't really envision you working for anybody for very long periods of time because you like to do your own thing. Because even in college, I had a couple of my businesses running and all of that stuff. But either out of, say, the fear of the unknown, maybe I was scared, whatever you want to call it, I went down the whole career path, right? And I did that for a good decade. I was very lucky. I worked with some exceptionally talented people in world-class firms. But around the time, what also happened is about a few years ago, six-ish years ago, maybe 7, I moved to the US. And that was just me being in the right environment. Because I think a lot of times in life, it's not necessarily whether somebody has a skill, like the hard skill to do something. A lot of this is a mental game, right? So I was just in the right environment because, when I moved to Texas, America generally is a lot more entrepreneurial. I was in Canada. Canada is a phenomenal place to live, but the culture is very different, right? Americans are a lot more, hey, shoot first, ask questions later type deal, right?
Yeah.
So, and Texas was kind of like the ground zero of a lot of these things happening. People want to do deals, we'll meet for coffee, let's make this happen, let's make this happen. Very positive, sort of that type of environment. And that I think was basically maybe just the mental push that I needed, right? And that's basically how I got started. Now, for the real estate aspect of the business as a business, what had happened is a few years ago, we had a big tax event, a positive prop. It was a good prop. We had a lot of gains, wanted to shelter those gains. So because I was running and structuring deals on the institutional side, working in these banks, companies, pretty extensive experience. And because of my family's been in real estate I'm the third generation. They had their own businesses as well. So I was privileged and lucky enough to have good personal and professional networks, right? Personal in the sense that understanding the sacrifice that's involved, and professional in the sense that having the technical competence, the people, the know-how, all of that stuff. So wanted to shelter our gains. That was the impetus for doing the first deal. And then basically being new in the country, I didn't have existing networks built in place that says people who've been living here, say born and raised in America, would have had those networks, right? So then I had to go build those networks out and then, do one good deal after the other. So the intention never was, hey, go do so many real estate deals or do this business deal. The intention was find a way around this tax problem, did that, meet interesting people, do interesting deals where everybody makes a lot of money, and then just keep putting one foot after the other. Yeah, but being in the right environment, without that, nothing would have happened, basically.
Yeah. So do you think you kind of left like traditional financial markets and got into real estate? Was that really the influence of your family? Or
no, not really. Look, my family, I can tell you from our personal family point of view and my point of view, I still invest in the stock market in the sense that I'm not like picking stocks or anything. I invest in the index, like an S&P 500 index, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it was never a case of pick this or that. Like I usually try to not have those options in my life. I like and options, not or options, right? Do this and this, right?
Right.
Not do this or that, because I feel like, at least in my opinion, at least, there is no one right way of, say, being financially independent or freedom or whatever you want to call it, right? Different people have crafted their own path and journey towards financial freedom. And there's so many ways to get there that just because I'm not thinking of a way doesn't mean that that way doesn't exist. Right. So for me, it was still being involved in the stock market in the sense of indices. But for me, from a portfolio point of view, what that helps me do is have liquidity all the time. Because when I'm investing in my real estate deals, because I've 90% of my net worth now is in my real estate deals, that's not a very liquid play, right? Because once you invest money, you can't just take it out. So I still need a pool of liquidity on the side that I can use. Maybe, for instance, whatever holdings we have, I have a line of credit against that, right? From my bank. So then if I ever need to extract some money out short term, either to pay hard money on loans, to close a deal quickly, some of that stuff, I can do that basically.
Yeah.
So that's what helps.
That's great. Yeah. Okay. So this is a great, segue into the next question is really, do you have a defined overall wealth strategy, right? And we like to talk about it really as an overall, wealth strategy, right? A financial planner will talk about kind of creating a plan for you and everything, but we think that, in this kind of contrarian world, right, of thinking differently about passive income and everything, it's an overall strategy, right? Because you've got tax planning, you're learning, right? It's about mindset, how you're kind of going after the game and really looking at assets that are multidimensional as well, right? They've got upside, they protect your downside and things like that. So do you have a particular wealth strategy that, is your playbook right now?
No, I don't, frankly. Like I have a lifestyle. Okay, let me rephrase this. I don't have a particular wealth strategy to directly answer that question. But what I do have based on my experiences, again, my experiences are limited, but again, just based on the perspective I have, based on the very many, say, successful people I know, my personal family, other people I read about, I'm a big believer in that, right? My personal philosophy is that obviously money is a very important component, don't get me wrong. But my wife is a high income earner. She's a physician, right? So I have a lot of luxury in the sense that I can afford taking certain risks that, say, somebody else who does not have a high income earner, who's perpetually always going to, being a physician is as close to being a guaranteed income, right? Because frankly, people are going to keep getting sick, right? So I have the privilege and luxury of going out and taking risks. For instance, on the real estate side of the business, starting that business up, right? We're starting a QSR business, starting that fund up. I have the luxury of doing that, knowing that a portion like that, the immediate financial day-to-day need is covered. We also live extremely below our means, right? It's not like some sort of like fire sort of movement thing. It's just, dude, I had such a good time on my parents' dime. I spent all my money when my parents were spending it on me.
Yeah.
Now I understand the value of a dollar when I make it, so I'm not going to spend a lot of money. Right. So for me, what's important is because from, say, just a net worth point of view, right? I've kind of achieved at a bare minimum what I need to basically have like a quality of life that's equivalent to, say, roughly, say, 200 grand a year for the next 30 years. Luckily, I'm very privileged. I've already done that, right? So now for me, what's very important is to understand what are interesting ways that I can enhance my life, whether it's by doing interesting businesses that return a lot of money to our partners and investors, meeting interesting people in those businesses so that I can learn and expand as a person. So those experiences now are a lot more important to me than, say, hey, you got to save 200 grand this year into this slice to go do this thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And so where would you see yourself, like, right, that's kind of part of your vision, I guess, where do you see yourself in the future, kind of instantiating that vision?
So first of all, that's a good question. This is why I need to have more conversations with you, because it's not fully fleshed out. But where I see myself basically is that for me, the biggest thing always has been time freedom, right? Again, it's like that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Time freedom is kind of like the third or fourth level. If you don't have if you're not paying the bills, and your kids aren't going to college or school or whatever you want to send them, right? They're not well taken care of, then your time freedom is meaningless. You might as well be homeless then, right?
Yeah.
So taking care of that, for me, the biggest thing has always been time freedom, because growing up, one of the things that I always saw was that I was lucky enough to go to a good school. And so I was surrounded by kids whose parents were relatively affluent, right? And in the grand scheme of things, they were relatively affluent. But what a lot of those parents were they were two income earners. So they'd be, say, two lawyers, or one lawyer, one business owner, and they were always strapped for time. So those people might not have come to their kids' parent-teacher meetings all the time, or they might not have been as involved in the kids' lives as much as my parents were, or I was lucky enough for my parents to be, right? Yeah. So for me, time freedom is very important. So having a life where I'm fulfilling my obligations, both as a husband, father, household member, but also having the luxury to basically put my feet up and read a book whenever I want to, listen to the music whenever I want to, and to a reasonable degree, travel whenever I want to. Now that's limited with COVID and small kids, but having the lifestyle where I'm not just constrained by going to office at a particular moment in time, checking out at a particular moment in time, and being geographically constrained.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really the four freedoms, right? So not only having freedom of money, but having freedom of purpose to do what it is you want to do, having freedom of time to do what it is when you want to do it. Also freedom of relationship, right? Yeah. To be able to, work with the right kind of people that you want to. And that's one thing that I found that's just really awesome about this business is, working with great partners such as yourself. It means a difference, right? You don't want to, when you go to work and you're in some corporate job and you have to work with people you don't want to work with, and you're not necessarily aligned there, it can be frustrating. But when you're
it's just soul destroying, man, because you got to you take that half hour, 45 minute, 1 hour commute, then you have got to put a fake smile on your face to meet the guy you hate inside. Yeah. And then you got to do this for the next 30 years.
Right. It's no fun. We've all had those kind of relationships. So I think freedom of relationship is, really, really important as well. And so, I mean, here's another kind of point. I know we've talked about strategic coach a little bit and everything, but so what would you say really from a personal development perspective, that has really, helped you out the most in terms of, something that you do, it's now a habit or a practice that you have? What is something that's really helped you out the most?
Like a real tactical thing that's like an immediate help that I feel not just helped me, I feel can help a lot of people, even though my family initially used to make fun of me. My mom made fun of me, my wife made fun of me, but they all are on board now, is you have to put things on a calendar. Okay. If you don't put things on a calendar, it does not exist. I mean, it's to the point where I have some of my friends saying to me, oh, why did you send me a calendar? Like, bro, you can call me anytime. I'm like, look, it's not for you, it's for me. Yeah. Because what I want to do is say, if I say, hey man, hey Dave, let's talk at 2 p.m. on Friday. What I don't want to do is, while I'm talking to you, thinking about the 15 other things that I could be doing, or having a pressure, hey, I got to get off this call, I got to go do this thing, right? So managing your calendar, learning, and everybody's got a different process, right? I color code my calendar just to kind of have time blocking on the calendar. Again, a lot of the calendar specific things. So I am very calendar driven. And obviously this has happened in the last few years, right? It wasn't always the case. I was always organized, but I think the calendar aspect, to me at least, and the people that I've seen who've implemented it, it just forces you without you even realizing to be organized. Yeah. And when that happens, a lot of pieces just fall into the place, right? Because a lot of times you don't leave it to feelings, right? Hey, I don't feel like making that call. I don't feel like doing that thing. Because you and I both, I mean, you're in the Marines, you definitely know this. Feelings are meaningless. You don't get the work done.
Right.
Right? Work has to get done. So you have to, a lot of times you have to play games with yourself, right? How to make it more enjoyable. Sometimes it's make it more enjoyable, sometimes check off a chore. Whatever it is you got to do, get it done. So I think the calendar part is the biggest productivity tool I've had, which somebody, by the way, is implementable by everyone, not just me.
Right. No, it seems really basic, right? But it is super powerful. And I mean, one of the things that I work on weekly is, every day on Monday, I put together my weekly planner. so I can focus on the top 3, most crucial results that I have to have that week. And I'm looking at, those key initiatives that I have to get done on each day. And then I can drive my calendar from that, so that it becomes, your work becomes so intentional, because you're absolutely right. In this day and age, everyone's trying to grab your attention. Right. So if you don't have it blocked out in your calendar, it's probably not going to happen. And that includes, time with family, time with friends as well.
My wife made so much fun of with this time with family part, right? My mom made fun of me initially.
Yeah.
But you're going to put family time on the calendar? I was like, yes, because I'm going to put family time, because then somebody calls me. Either I'm not going to, because, we're so itchy, at least I am so itchy, right? You want to pick up the phone. You want to check one more email.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm telling you, a lot of, if you're the average person like I am, and you've got the average family and friends, they're going to make fun of you initially. Bro, you don't got to do that. But that is such a key point David said, that, that right in and of itself, it might be the biggest productivity hack for your life. Forget about day to day.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree. And the other point I would throw in here that's made a huge difference. Now in this COVID world that we're living in, right, where everyone's online and everything, these little calendar apps like Calendly or Go Once Hub, if you don't have like a calendar scheduler, you've got to get one, right? Because it just really cuts out on all that back and forth traffic of 5 emails to figure out when you're going to set up the meeting. So just doing a quick calendar invite is super helpful as well.
I agree with you.
Yeah. Awesome. So what would you say, can you tell us a little bit about Boardwalk, what you're doing this year in terms of 2022, lots going on. I heard your quarterly report, interest rates, right? The economy, where we are in the kind of the cycle and everything. And, how are you really feeling about, multifamily? How are you positioning yourself this year? Any insights that you can share?
Well, Dave, I don't play a macroeconomist on TV because I'm not one. And it's always funny to me, all these guys who couldn't pass Econ 101 certainly know what Jerome Powell is going to do tomorrow, right? And so I don't like to be in the game of like making predictions that have no basis in reality, or in areas where I don't have an expertise. Look, for me, the game plan's always been the same. Do deals in a conservative manner, whether times are good or bad, because you never know what's around the corner. Times could be really good right now, and tomorrow something so weird happens that, who would have thought coronavirus would have happened? This wasn't even a thing we ever thought about. Or at least I didn't.
Sure.
Right. So the point always is to be, doing deals that make sense in good times or bad. Right. So specifically, what does it mean for us? We are doing acquisitions and developments, right? So we're on both ends of the spectrum and covering everything in between. Now, for me, what I'm also doing is launching a QSR fund with a very experienced operator. We've been in discussions for about 2 years. QSR is a politically correct term these days for a fast food restaurant, right? So this is going to be a healthy eating concept, clean eats. So it's a regional brand. It's pretty famous and great model. But it was very uncorrelated to our real estate business, because our real estate business is very asset heavy, right? It's a very asset heavy business. You have to constantly feed the machine with money and not just brain power, right? Because you can have all the brain power, that's not going to buy you materials to fix up your property, right? So it's a great business, but it's an asset heavy business. And for my other big business, what I wanted was to do the exact opposite, to have an operator heavy business and an intellectual heavy business. There's always a CapEx component, real estate, not real estate, but a dollar component attached. But the vision there is less asset heavy, more basically operations heavy. So this is a business that's very high cash margins, right? And investors are going to basically be able to match both things. And what I didn't want to do was just be focused on real estate, because I've tried explaining this to people, the really sophisticated people get it, that the bulk of the money that's created in the world is created outside of real estate. Once people have made the money, then they park it in real estate, the real big ones, right?
Yeah.
So this is why, for instance, you see all these tech guys, the top 10 is choke full with tech guys, right? Because frankly, you could be the biggest real estate person on the planet and not even be in the top 100 of the richest people in the world. Again, not saying I'm getting there anytime soon, but trying to explain that, when you build scalable businesses, and you've been a successful business owner, this, when you build scalable businesses, you put the right people in the right place, which are intellectually heavy run, your returns on a return on equity basis are, I mean, real estate can't even compare, but it's a very operationally intensive business. So you have to have the right people in the right spots.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's that cash flow creation component, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, in order to build wealth, you really need mass times velocity.
Yeah.
So it's creating that mass, right, for your cash flow and everything. Tell us a little bit about, I mean, for investors maybe out there who aren't familiar with doing development, straight real estate development opportunities compared to, say, a value add type of opportunity, you know, how would you kind of explain that from your view?
So look, you have to realize it's a spectrum of things, right? You have to look at things as a risk reward spectrum. So if you think about it, if you're with, say, value add is here as an example, this is just a made up example. Value add is here. So less risk, less reward, traditionally, not all the time. And development is here. Now, the thing with development is you're taking a lot of risk, right? Because you're taking a risk in the sense that you're developing a property from the ground up. So many variables can happen. The economy changes by the time you're finished developing a project. The rents drop. If you're so inclined to sell a property because the economy is in a tailspin, you might not be able to sell. Then from a sponsor point of view, basically what we have are recourse loans. We don't have non-recourse loans when we do development. So the idea is because you are taking a more amount of risk, your returns are way higher because you're going earlier in the process. Think about it this way. Somebody had to develop the value add property that you're now buying. They probably made money on it. Somebody bought it, ran it, made a little bit of money, typically, not always. And then they kind of sold it to you, hopefully, and you'll make some money, right? So obviously, if you go all the way to step 0 or step 1, in this case, is developing the property from the ground up, because that's where you're going to get the highest amount of, you know, for like, so you enter, say, 10 units of input, you get like 100% returns, that sort of deal, right? Yeah. So that's where you will get the most amount of returns on average, risk adjusted and otherwise. And for us, basically, again, a lot of this is like I told you with the QSR fund, right? It's a diversification strategy. This is basically within the realm of real estate. We're going back in the value chain and capturing all of the profit that all of the people before us was capturing. Now we are capturing that profit for our investors. So again, it doesn't mean stop doing value add. It doesn't mean just only do developments or do QSRs. It means is that you need to have a holistic approach and you need to pick and choose your battles wisely. But remember, there are many ways to financial freedom, and you always have to be, you know, curious to learn, find the right partners, and really be opportunistic in availing the right opportunities.
Yeah, 100%. I love that word that you just said, which is, you know, you have to be curious to learn. And it's so interesting. I'm sure, you know, you talk to plenty of, you know, new people in this space, whether they be investors or just people who aren't familiar with it. And a lot of people are not curious, right? Yeah. They say, you know, they have a financial planner, they've been doing everything, you know, one way forever. And that's just the way it is. You know, that's what they learned. And it creates, you know, sometimes some limitations, but really you see—
Hold on. Those limitations, by the way, are also created by financial planners who have a vested interest in you not being, and by the way, I was a assistant portfolio manager. So I was managing portfolios. So I know this industry inside out. A lot of times these financial planners, they're not looking out for your best interest. So if you could invest in Dave's real estate deal and make exponentially more money, that guy's probably going to tell you no, because he can't charge you fees on the deal that Dave is helping you invest in. And that's a big issue, whether people say yes or no. That happens more often than you would think.
Right. It's not in their bag of tricks to be able to sell. Right. So that's why, you typically don't hear about it. But I just wanted to really highlight that point that you said, which I think was really salient around, just being curious. Right. And I think not enough people are curious. And it's one of the things I love about, entrepreneurs and people who are really willing to bend the curve and do things differently, challenge the norm. Right. And what that becomes is you can become a lifelong learner, where you're always learning, right? Because, no one has all the answers, right? But the more you can be curious and you can ask the right questions and learn, you're going to become more educated. As you become more educated, you actually start to reduce your risk, right? Because you understand things more, and then you become more empowered, right? In making the right decisions and having that clarity.
Also, it's a more enriching life. Like, think about it, right? A lot of times, when you hear perspectives from people in other fields, They might not, even fields that are directly opposite to what you're doing. They don't necessarily have to translate, but a lot of times you can look at, say, somebody's way of thinking and get inspired by that way of thinking, even though you might not, whatever they were thinking about does not apply in your situation, because you can say, these are the ways this guy thought, or this guy or girl thought about it. And maybe I can try to apply it into my own life. And a lot of times you do enough of this by reading, being curious, and subconsciously it goes into your mind and it helps you become a better person, not just in investing, but in life, basically.
Right. 100%. I'm not sure if you've started the strategic coach
I am going to start next February, because you remember I had it, and because of COVID, they had to cancel it. Then they had 2 virtual sessions, and I was like, no, I want to go to the physical, because we talked about it, right?
Yeah.
I want to go to the physical in-person event.
Yeah. But it's interesting because high-powered, really coaching programs, all it really is about asking good questions. That's really the entire format. So you're thinking about your thinking, and you're asking good questions, and you're being curious so that you can learn and gain this clarity of insight, which I think is powerful.
I'm actually very interested in the strategic coach thing. I've been counting the days.
Yeah. Yeah. I look forward to hear your results. I know we have a lot of investors in our community who are actually members as well.
Oh, that's kind of nice.
Yeah, it tells you something, though, for sure. Also, just going back to the development piece and everything, can you just tell us a little bit about markets? Are you looking at specific markets differently from, development versus value add, or, this year, are there any particular markets that you're focusing on?
The markets are still the same: Texas, Georgia, Florida, and South Dakota, because I have a really good partner there. Plus, that market is on fire. Basically, same principles as the Southeast markets: low cost of living, landlord-friendly state, business-friendly state, no taxes. All of that jazz is still there. For me, the biggest thing was, even within these markets, like whatever I'm doing, like, am I doing it with people that I trust and I respect? So in the case of the South Dakota thing, that might, I knew about the place and the great statistics it had, but I might not have done those deals if it wasn't with a trusted partner that I'd already done close to $100 million of deals in the Southeast. He's a very prolific developer up there. He's done over $100 million of projects easily developed. And because him and I have such a good relationship, and we also have complementary skill sets. So I cannot do the work he does, because frankly, my brain doesn't even work like that. And he is straight up told me, he's like, look, dude, if I ever have to do anything what you're doing, I'm just going to straight up quit this partnership. Right. And that's perfect, right? Because we're all leveraging each other's skill set. Right. So, but if that trusted partner wasn't there, I wouldn't have done that deal, no matter how good it was. So for me, markets are important, and we're in this little, it's a big area, but it's a small area if you think about it, right? But for me, it's very important that before I do a deal, who am I doing a deal with? And I'm at a stage where I want to enjoy the fruits of that partnership and the process and the journey, as opposed to you do a deal, make some money, and you get out.
Absolutely. I'm always telling people that real estate is a people business. Right? It's all about putting the right people together, and to the extent that you can collaborate, right, with great partners, and each one having their role to fulfill, that's leverage right there. That's human leverage that you can get, and the sum of the parts is always greater. So definitely with you on that as well. Omar, what would you, if you had just one piece of advice to give to our listeners around basically their own wealth trajectory, right? As kind of as an investor, or people wherever they are on their journey, if you could just give one piece of advice, what would that be?
Be curious. Like the thing we talked about earlier, because there's a lot of, I can tell you this, look, I was very lucky, like I mentioned, it's not because of whatever intelligence I have or I don't have, nothing to do with me. I was very lucky to have so many good mentors and partners along the way. But if I had just kept on doing the great corporate career I had, as an example, I would still be stuck in the machine, right? Again, look, it's not like I'm worth like $200 million or I'm a billionaire. I'm not that. I'm not even close to that, right? But relatively speaking, right, I would still be stuck. And I would hate my job because, you gotta go to the office, go do this, that. You're always playing politics, all of that. So I was curious enough and lucky enough, by the way, to meet the right people and then diligently follow up on those opportunities. But a lot of times you have to realize, and I think this afflicts a lot of, in my experience, white collar professionals, because we're used to knowing the answers to things, right? Doctors, lawyers, accountants, engineers, IT folks, STEM people. The whole idea that schooling teaches us is, well, you already need to know the answers because read a book and blah, 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 blah. And a lot of times in life, you don't know the answers. So you have to be curious enough to know that, hey, I want to go learn about something, but intellectually honest enough with you to know that you will never learn about something 100%. And a lot of times it is a leap into the darkness. But if you never take that leap, you'll always be stuck in the mire that you're in. So being curious, realizing you never have the answers, but then taking action, not just being stuck. So I don't know if that's one advice, but it's like a stepwise advice that you could take in one go.
No, that's really a great insight. Definitely agree with that. And it is fascinating, right? And it's probably why, Robert Kiyosaki with, Rich Dad and everything, he proclaims to be an education company, right? Because if you think about all the schoolings that we have in the world, and whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, a pilot, or whatever it is, your advanced degrees, your undergraduate degrees, all this training, it's all about learning how to make money and how to build a career. But nowhere does anyone train you how to protect and grow your money.
Yeah.
It's really not taught anywhere. The only place it's taught is, things like, podcasts, right? Or reading books, right? Where people are kind of talking about it.
Or the School of Hard Knocks.
The School of Hard Knocks in doing it. Yeah. So I think the education component is really key. And that ties well into, your point about, being curious, being a lifelong learner. The more you can learn and become educated, it's definitely correlates to your net worth.
Yeah. But again, I think, this is just me observing things because I talk to so many investors. I think a lot of the highly educated people like you said, advanced degrees, they are either, in my experience, afraid of appearing as they don't know the answer, right? Because, they've been taught to know the answer. Yeah. So that holds them back a lot of times. Whereas if you think about it, these are the perfect candidates for self-learning because they've already exhibited so many good traits to be able to get those advanced degrees, because it requires the ability to take pain. Mm-hmm. It requires the ability to self-learn. But I think a lot of times modern schooling beats any sort of creativity and, initiative out of you, right? Yeah. It just beats it out of you by the time you're done.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a good observation. Good way to say that. So Omar, thanks for coming on the show today. Is there any, if folks wanted to reach out to you, do you have any resources or contact info you'd like to share?
Yes, you can go to our website, boardwalkwealth.com. Right on the front page on the right, you'll see an email opt-in page. It says name, email, how you found out about us. You can also email me at Omar, O-M-A-R, at boardwalkwealth.com. And look, if you email me and you give me your cell phone number, what I'll do is I'll have Sean, my marketing guy, add you to our app so you can start seeing all these videos and courses where we talk about all this kind of stuff and similar stuff that we've talked with Dave. You can have it at your fingertips. This is stuff that's not just my experience, but experiences of other people that we've distilled down in easy to understand concepts. So you don't have to make the same mistakes that I did or Dave did or somebody else did.
Absolutely. It's all about learning and empowering people. Yeah. Omar, thanks so much for your time today, coming on the show and sharing your insights with the listeners. I know it was a ton of value, so really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Dave. I'm very grateful for the invite.
All right, thanks.